just what is XML? Before getting into that, it's important to know a little bit more about data. Now, there are two types of data. Let's look at one type. Here's a list of food, veggies, carrots, peas, chicken, and so forth. This list is actually related to itself. Now, this list not only has data, but it also has some relationships between different types of data. It's easy to figure this out because we know what these things are. But what if we didn't? How would we know the relationships between them? So what we do is we often put data in an outline. Here's food. And according to this list, food is broken down into three categories: veggies, meat, and fruit. And within veggies, we see carrot, celery, and peas are all veggies. Chicken, mutton, and fish are all meat. Banana, mango, and apple, they're all fruit. So XML is really two things. Number one, it's the data inside of a file or a stream. Number two, it's the description of the data in the file or stream, including relationships and properties of the data. So let's look at the data side of XML. We often encounter lists of data. Here's a list of data. Countries of the world: USA, Canada, Germany, Brazil, and so forth. Now, our familiarity with countries of the world, we can look at Spain and Finland and say, how are they related? Well, they're both in Europe. But we can't tell from this list. This is only from our pre-knowledge of knowing what this data represents. Here's another list that not everybody is familiar with, which is a good thing, because this will teach us how to make it self-describing. These are teams of the NFL, which is the National Football League. Now, for the international viewers, I often get the question, why do you call it football if you never use a foot? Well, because the ball is 12 inches long, so it's the only ball that's exactly a foot long, so it's a measurement, not an actual part of the body. Anyway, that being aside, these are football teams in the United States. Now, how are these related? Some people will just know because they're big fans. I don't know all of them. All I know is my city doesn't seem to win very often. But once I look at the XML, I can answer some pretty advanced questions about this. Let's go back to storing data. Where can data be stored? Here's the list of the teams in the NFL, and we can store that in SQL Server databases. And due to relationships and tables and lookups, we can figure out which teams and divisions and conferences go together. We could also take this list and store it in a text file, although the text file is not going to tell us much about the interrelations. So both SQL and a text file can store data. So what is the advantage of a hierarchical data system like SQL Server? Well, we just talked about that. That gets us to part 2, the metadata side of XML. All right. In a SQL database, a table can be related to other meaningful data, such as conferences and divisions. Here we go. By putting it in an outline form, I can see that the Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins, and New England Patriots are in the same Eastern Division of the AFC set of teams. We can also see that the Chicago Bears and Detroit Lions belong together in the Northern Division of the NFC teams. We already know that SQL is relational, SQL data is descriptive, and text files are not. It's just flat lists of data. So, how about an XML versus a traditional text file? The text file, just data. You got to figure out or know what all that means. XML files are data plus metadata, kind of like an outline. So here's what's cool about XML. Let's start off with an example. The NFL, we represent NFL by the beginning NFL tag and the ending NFL tag. Now, everything that belongs to the NFL must go inside of these tags. Now, I'll tell you one thing I know right now about this. The NFL has two conferences, the American Football Conference and the National Football Conference. So everything that belongs to the AFC goes between these two tags or elements, and everything belongs to the NFC goes between these two tags or elements. I'll tell you another thing I do know. Each of the conferences has 4 divisions. The divisions are called West, North, South, and East. All of the teams of the AFC West would go between these two tags, and all of the teams of the AFC North would go between these two tags. And just by their placement in these tags, you know which teams relate to each other by division and conference. Each division, like I said, has many teams. List all of the teams. You know which division they belong to. The Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins, the New England Patriots, and New York Jets are all in the AFC Eastern Division of the NFL. So an XML file is like a mini database stored inside of a file. An XML file is data and the accompanying metadata to support self-descriptive and relational information. Here's an example. The NFL has an AFC conference, which has an Eastern Division. It's got the Buffalo Bills as the first team, Miami Dolphins as the second team, and the New England Patriots as the third team, and the New York Jets as the last team. Now we put the closing East tag in to end that division. Now let's talk about the North Division. The Baltimore Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Cleveland Browns, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, that wraps up the Northern Division, so we've got an ending tag. Now we're going to start with the Southern Division. Houston Texans, Indianapolis Colts, and so forth. If you were to put all 32 teams of the NFL in their proper divisions in XML, it would look like this. To make this easier to read, I'm going to split this XML file horizontally and ask a simple question. The Denver Broncos, what division are they in? You don't have to know anything about American football to see that they're in the AFC Western Division. Next task. List all of the teams of the NFC South. Within the NFC, there is a Southern Division that has the Atlanta Falcons, the Carolina Panthers, the New Orleans Saints, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's time to arm you with a couple of vocabulary terms. The NFL element, the all-encompassing element, is known as the root element. The AFC and NFC are what's known as top-level elements. Now, we can't tell what the AFC and NFC stands for, so sometimes you might want to put in what's known as an attribute. An attribute is a description within a tag that gives you more information about what that tag means and some of its properties. Time for Lab 1.1, Skill Check 1. Based on the XML to the right, answer the following questions below. Skill Check 2. Based on this XML to the right, answer the following questions below.